Welcome to the second episode of what Nicole and I have affectionately titled Season Veterans. We watch entire seasons of TV shows and then talk about it because that's what we normally do in our lives. So we figured we might as well record it and share it with you. So I am the dude of this whole podcast. You'll be able to tell our voices apart pretty easily. My name is Bobby, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
She was obviously the same person from the first podcast when we didn't really do the best introduction, so now we got that out of the way.
I didn't even mention our names at all, I don't think.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. So, it's a podcast thing. We're learning. We're growing together. And today, we watched the second season of Better Call Saul. First off, I'm really enjoying it. I gotta say, it's definitely exceeding my expectations in terms of what I thought the show was going to be like. Because as I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of spin-off shows. So this one, very refreshing, and they're doing a really good job of walking that line between a story that we kind of already know and reference, but telling it in a fresh way while still being like, here's the present day that also refers back to the story that's being told.
We get a lot of fun little Easter eggs.
I like how the season's beginning, too. That first black and white vignette where Saul's taking out the trash at the Cinnabon at the end of the day and gets locked in the little dumpster area. And it's like, man, we saw him do some devastating stuff in Breaking Bad, and now he's reduced to, waiting by a dumpster after his shitty mall or airport job is over with. He's just stuck there.
I kind of love that desperation. While you see that he's kind of got past that ego that we're seeing a lot of in the early scenes, where it's like, I'm better than this. I'm better than sitting waiting in a dumpster. But he knows better because he can't go through that door and risk the police coming and risk getting caught.
Yeah, that he doesn't want anybody looking into his life at all.
Exactly.
Because
no red flags, no matter how small.
Exactly. Well, see, and I didn't realize that as good as Saul Goodman was, I guess his alibis and his documents, don't look too closely at my life setup, because he has to have a social insurance number if he's working or whatever the U.S. equivalent of that is. I'm assuming it's the same thing. So he had to have that made. He had to have a passport made. He's got to have certain documents that probably appear valid, but for any sort of police officer or just, representative of the law to have a look might raise a bunch of flags. So I didn't even catch that originally. I was just like, oh, he doesn't want to make a big deal of it. What a fucking nerd. And I was like, oh, the police. It says it may alert the police. Also, so I'm enjoying that level. That's a good way of telling the story, too, without just blatantly shoving it in our faces that he's afraid of the cops and trying to keep a low profile.
Very true.
As I was saying earlier about being a fan of the show and not really liking spinoffs, this one picked up season 2 about 2 weeks after the first season ended. They confirmed season 2. And obviously this was in a time where TV shows didn't get a season 2 as often as we're getting nowadays, where Netflix, you're guaranteed 2 seasons. So that was a big deal. 2 weeks after, the amount of viewing audience that had been watching this show faithfully for 10 episodes in season 1, I'd say was rewarded with how season 2 played out.
Well, I feel like they left season 1 with some pretty big unanswered questions. Really made you want more. So it's not surprising to me that they got a new season so quickly. But yeah. I guess in the time frame, it does probably a rarity.
See, you're right about there being a continual story from the first and second one, but we didn't see that that family. I can't remember what their name is now. The super ones that were like, we didn't steal the money, but they totally stole the money.
Oh,
the Kettlemans or something?
Kettlemans,
is it Kettlemans? I was going to
yeah.
say Kettleby, and I was like, that's definitely not what their name was. Kettlemans, okay.
Knew it was a K.
But for this season, there were a number of story arcs that, for the most part, I'd say were a lot more in-depth and fleshed out than season 1. I really enjoyed the Price arc, which might sound kind of silly because that fucking nerdy dad guy who was selling drugs thought Price was a good gangster name. And me doing some fact-checking on that was like, oh my god, he did call himself Price, didn't he? But I liked how that whole thing played out because it started with him just having a really easy way to make some extra money selling pills to Nacho, and you could see how, in a smaller, focused way, that lifestyle got the best of him when he rolled up to pick up Mike in that stupid fucking Hummer, like that just police bait of a vehicle. And had, like, bigger britches on. I was like, well, why am I even bringing you? These have been super easy. And the second he didn't bring Mike, a professional, to that meeting, what happened?
Nacho goes into his vehicle, finds out his name, and not only steals all his drug money that he's made from Nacho, but his beloved baseball cards.
Yeah.
One of the first notes I have written down for today, because I actually wrote notes this time, I'm getting on your preparation level here, was that Price is an idiot, and no one should love baseball more than their freedom. Like, he was so naive. I cannot believe how many stupid mistakes he made and didn't realize someone's going to look at me and be like, not adding up here to your regular lifestyle.
I can't believe he voluntarily went to the cops over this. Like, if I had something illegal in my home that I didn't want the police to know about, I wouldn't bring them to my home. And I think it's Nacho that says that early in season 1, where he's like, I like ripping off thieves because they have no recourse. It's either
Exactly.
Nacho or
No,
Tuco. We got pens flying everywhere in the office.
I think it is Nacho.
And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna rip
he's
off
talking
Price.
about the Kettlemans.
Oh yeah, and he sets
That's
that up.
when he stakes them out.
So yeah, obviously he's got that same mentality with Price, and also those 2 cops that show up at his house and investigate the shit out of his house.
On the ball.
Man, I want those cops to deal with any sort of crime that I have to deal with, because like they went above and beyond finding a crawl space in his house for money.
And not only like finding it, but covering it back up so he didn't know they found it. Although I don't even think he would have noticed if they left the couch out from the wall. He is that dumb.
And like, yeah, he even left like that clear space where like he got home, saw his place was ransacked, and immediately moved the couch. And the cops picked up on that. But I really enjoyed about that interaction when the cops are slowly like figuring out the whole story and like, oh, that's a hell of an SUV you got out there. And his response is, I got a great deal on a lease for it. Like, oh yeah, I'm a frugal guy. I'm going to lease my vehicles, but the vehicle I'm leasing is a giant H2 with flames on it.
Literally.
I love that. That was such a good little investment in Price's story. And then it all came to a head when he went to the fucking police station. Like, Nicole and I were sitting here on the couch watching this, just like, what are you doing? Like, it's almost as bad as that woman from Dirty John. Just like she kept making those terrible decisions, and it's like all of a sudden Price is driving in to the police station, like sees Mike, like, oh, you work here? I'm just going in, like it's no big deal. I knew that Price was dumb, but the levels of dumb he was going to by like going to the like Mike just knew that. He's like, this guy's a fucking amateur, and he's gonna get me put in jail.
Exactly. The scene where he shows up at the police station and rolls up and Mike's at work is one of my favorites. Just the disbelief on Mike's face. Like, what is this fucking idiot doing here? And immediately is like, no, action. And again, I think it all comes down to the moments that pull Mike away from actually doing his ticket job. You know, yet again, he shuts the window, lets people go through. I don't give a shit about your validation. Just go for free. There's bigger fish to fry here.
Yeah. And that whole talk, too, where he's like, I'll find the cards for you. Don't go talk to the police. Because if you're going in to talk to the police, they already have a reason to talk to you. That's already, like, oh, you know, you're the victim in the crime in your mind. But, like, the cops picked up on that drug crawl space. He still thinks that they don't realize that. Like, that, I liked the idea of Price's character, where it's like, it was kind of like a mini Walter White getting into the deal, but like, what would have happened if Walt screwed up at step 1, where he just started balling relentless? Like, he, in the original Breaking Bad, he knew that he couldn't be walking around with that money. He made mistakes, but later on when he was kind of losing a grip on it. But that was Price just thinking he was living that life. And like, there's one scene too when he gets out of the Hummer and his sneakers match the fucking Hummer. Like,
So he's so obnoxious about it.
You'll get killed on a street corner in some cities for that. Like that was how it ended up too. Was, oh, okay, we'll get your cards back, but it's gonna cost you that stupid Hummer and $5,000. And then
I think it was 10,000.
Was it 10,000? It was 10,000. You're right. Yeah, Nacho had the cards, which was, I can't believe Price didn't think of that. like he was a victim of a crime, how many criminals do you associate with in your day-to-day that he didn't think, maybe I got ripped off by the only criminal I deal with?
I don't understand why he genuinely thought someone would want his baseball cards. Who would know about these baseball cards?
Yeah, very true.
Like, obviously I'm not a big sports fan. If that hasn't been made clear in the last few seconds.
Oh, you're known for shooting several three-pointer buckets.
Damn right. I enjoy watching sporting events, but I know our cat Holly has just jumped up and tried to get in on the podcast. And obviously there are valuable sporting cards. I understand that, but
sporting cards.
Yeah, sporting cards.
Cards of a sporting variety.
I don't think anyone is going to great lengths to break into houses for them. And who are you talking to about this? I sound just like these cops.
Like, it may be different in the States, to be totally honest, that, like, I can see baseball being America's pastime being a bit more universal. But in my mind, it's like, did Nacho know a criminal that was like, yo, I'd do some horrible stuff or pay a lot of money for these baseball cards? And then Nacho, being the, like, experienced criminal, connect this so that he stole the cards. It was, like, I get that it was probably, I'm going to pawn these for, like, whatever I can get for them, or I'm going to sell them in some way. But, like, it was a weird thing to weigh against, like you said, your freedom. How much do you love these cards versus bringing people who will put you in jail into your home?
That was why I, baseball being America's pastime is why I did the baseball more than freedom, because, you know, America's all about baseball, freedom. Free.
But that, to be totally honest, was like the appetizer plot line for the overall story, because that wrapped up, I think, in a few episodes. But the battle between Jimmy and Chuck this season got violent. Not physically violent, but, like, got pretty fucking close.
It definitely did. I'm going to kind of contradict you on that. Not the fact that it wrapped up quickly, but I think that all the stories kind of wove together in a really interesting way this season, where I think we'll get into this later, but, you know, Jimmy comes in and defends Price while working for David and Maine. And that becomes a recurring issue between him and Kim and him and Chuck. You know, Jimmy crossing that line, pulling his cons in the law and without it. But damn, do things get intense between Jimmy and Chuck this season.
Yeah, like the lead up to it, where they're showing that Jimmy eventually takes that job with D&M, and even though he doesn't like it, he's still trying to excel at it. But, like, those old habits keep slipping into what he's doing. Like, when he goes onto the bus full of seniors, like, that alone, obviously he shouldn't be doing it, and that's very questionable, I guess, to the law of how he's doing it. But, like, you're taking a single elderly person and you're singling them out in a crowd of other elderly people, being like, I want to talk to you. He knew that was going to result in so many more people signing up with him. And, like, we see that later in the episode when it's like, oh, I went to go deal with one person, but I ended up signing 24 people. And that was his intention 100% of the way. But, like, Chuck kind of pushes him on that too. He's like, I don't know exactly what you did, but I know you did something shady to get that amount of people. And that's just, like, the opening jabs of what goes on for the rest of that season. Because I couldn't believe how spiteful Chuck was willing to be, and didn't see himself anywhere near as shitty as Jimmy was being. Like, not to jump ahead of everything that goes on, but at the end, like, towards the end of their big fight, when Chuck is accusing Jimmy of messing with those documents, which just totally screw him out of that Mesa Verde account. He says so many times, I can't believe I've been betrayed by my own brother. And it's like, man, you fucking screwed him out of, as far as we know, 2 partner positions within your company. And you're suddenly rattled that you're getting your comeuppance from your little brother? Like, that really, I don't think it was meant to land with me, but I thought that was funny that he's just like, betrayal! Literally. It's like, dude, you invented it.
He cannot handle the taste of his own medicine.
Oh, man.
I really dislike Chuck this season.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
a lot of moments that make it very hard to sympathize with him. And I think the one moment that did kind of make me a little Team Chuck, perhaps, was when he's confiding in Kim about their childhood and how Jimmy was ripping off their dad. And that was like, oh my God, like, have we been misled by Jimmy all along?
Was he, though?
No.
Okay, no, I know what you're going to say. I'm still unsure, but go ahead with what you're going to say.
Okay. So in episode 7, Inflatable, that opening scene makes it appear like it was not Jimmy who was ripping him off ever, but that all the missing money from the till came from their dad's really genuine heart and want to help people, but again, complete naivety and just getting taken advantage of by this guy.
Grifters, man.
Grifter.
But as we see at the end of that scene, Jimmy takes money from the till.
Yes.
That's because I agree with you that it's like I can see the like cumulative amount over the years. I think it's $14,000 is what Chuck accuses Jimmy of stealing. I can see that over the years being what's missing, you know, a few dollars here, a few dollars there. That'll definitely add up. But were all those dollars his dad trying to be a nice guy? You know, I'd rather help somebody and be made a fool than not help somebody who's actually in need. Exactly. Or was some of that Jimmy taken from the till? And we honestly don't know at this point. I am interested to see because that problem alone, like simplified, is the moral issue of Jimmy. Like, you know, he's not doing anything no one else is doing. And he's doing it his way. And in some ways, he benefits other people while he does these bad things. So is it really that bad? That's what I kind of get from this whole scenario of how Jimmy practices law. And we see that made true when he was like 12 years old.
Really heartbreaking.
Well, and we haven't seen Chuck there yet.
No.
As far as I can remember, Chuck hasn't been present in a childhood flashback yet.
So far, the only scene that we've really seen with Chuck, younger Chuck, and him with their parents is when their mother's dying, which
very true.
Strongly not Team Chuck after that.
No. No, honestly, I didn't feel anything for Chuck, for him even being, because, like, let me ask you honestly, what is Chuck's end game? What's his goal as a character?
I don't, like...
I would say, like, the abstract version of it is stop being allergic to electricity. You know, like, that's where he started. Was like, I want to be able to go out. I want to do more.
He wants to get back to work. But I think also in some ways, he doesn't. He wants to get away from that lifestyle and the stress. I think he wants to make it seem like he wants to go back to work. What we've seen him put the most effort into in the past 2 seasons, you know, present, past, future flashbacks, is fucking with Jimmy.
And for somebody who's, like, claiming to be all about the law and be meticulous and not judgmental, but, like, you know, judge things equally, he honestly acts like a fucking 16-year-old girl at the lunch table when Kim is in the document room after screwing up that one or the commercial thing where she didn't say anything about the commercial, which, side note, why the fuck would she? Like, that's not her fault. Hey, this thing you probably already know about, I've seen it. Like, yeah, what the fuck is that? Bosses will laugh at you. Like,
exactly. And especially when Howard's already being a dick to you. It's like, oh, it's not like we're having casual chit chat and this comes up and I'm telling you everything that my boyfriend kind of sort of guy tells me while we're hanging out.
Yeah, like there's at some point as lawyers, you think like off the record extends to their bedroom, you know?
Exactly.
But it really bothered me the way that when Kim goes to see Chuck and he's like, I'll see what I can do to get you out of the mailroom, and does, and then Howard's like, fuck you for going to Chuck to get out of the mailroom, which she didn't even really do. Chuck did that on his own, and then when he finds out she's leaving to form her own firm with Jimmy, he just like slams her in that meeting with Mesa Verde as if he didn't just like build her up 2 days prior to that. Like literally like a fucking dramatic teenager in high school shit talking behind the back of like their best friend, except there's millions of dollars at play.
That scene also made me uncomfortable in the fact that Chuck, it seemed like he was really just buddying up to Kim to get her away from Jimmy. It was like in the episode Rebecca, where Jimmy charms his lady friend. It's like, I'm going to charm your woman and steal her away from you and poison her against you, which makes me wonder if that's what happened, because we really don't find out. I'm jumping all over the place here, but we really don't find out what happened with Rebecca, why she's not in the picture anymore.
Yeah, where's Chuck's wife?
Yeah, when she left the picture.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And again, that kind of speaks to Chuck just being a fucking child. Like, oh, you talk to my girlfriend? I'm going to talk to your girl. It's like, you are a lawyer. You are the partner in a successful firm. What are you doing? Like, how are these the problems that, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like he can't even recognize that in himself, that it's childish what he's doing, and he shouldn't be spending this much effort worrying about the exploits of his brother and his girlfriend when he can't leave the fucking house because he thinks electricity is going to kill him. Like, you have so much bigger problems than what you're focusing your attention on. But what I really enjoyed about that meeting that HHM has with Mesa Verde is how his whole selling point is, I am meticulous, I have the experience, I'm going to spend the time needed because I know what I'm doing. And the mistake that I didn't realize, because I must have missed this scene, but you thankfully cleared that up for me, where Jimmy screws up the paperwork for him so that they go into court and look like fucking idiots with the address. That bites him in the ass so hard. And, like, I wish it was juicier than what it felt like. 'Cause it's like, yeah, take that, but he didn't obviously screw that up. He is that meticulous. He is that experienced. But we also don't like him. So I like that he had to take this comeuppance, even though he didn't really bring it on himself in that way.
Yeah, Jimmy definitely pulled a good one on him there. But it also kind of speaks to the fact that that wouldn't have really mattered. That change would have been noticed if Chuck was working from the office.
Yep,
if
very true.
If he wasn't making it this one-man show, everything that he was talking Kim down for, that, oh yeah, she's so fantastic, she's, she is better qualified, she could do it, but she's only one person. He's making it so he's the only one working on this, all on his own in his little den. And
by candlelight, by gas lantern.
And he gets it, because if he was at the office, he would have been referencing other documents. Someone would have been looking that over. It would have been caught immediately.
Well, there's actually a few times in the season, too, where I think both Jimmy and Howard, and maybe the other firm that shows up briefly, I can't remember their name right now, but I'll look it up in a second. They say to one, like, other characters, like, just have a paralegal look over it. Like, they say that a few times where it's like, that's what would have happened in the day-to-day proceedings at HHM if you weren't making them run photographed documents out to your fucking electricity-proof house. Like that, like it's got to the point where they shouldn't be dealing with him. Like they need to worry about the company and how, like, oh, turn in all your cell phones and turn off all the power in the building so that you can come in and do your work. Like, how many people does that upset?
It's an unrealistic expectation, especially...
Well, the H on the building,
yeah.
or the M on the building. Like, whatever, dude.
Yeah. Like, most people, if you're calling your lawyer, they need to answer the phone. So if all your cell phones are in a box because one person's in the building...
Yeah, you're lawyers. Like, you're not just like some fucking college kids in class. Like, have your phone turned down. Like, you may need legal assistance right then.
I also really enjoyed when he does go in, lights on and everything for the
Mesa Verde.
Mesa.
I know, it's hard to say, right?
Yeah.
New Mexico, god damn it.
For that meeting, you can see other people. It's like you could see them losing respect for him in that moment. Like, what do you mean we've been doing all this time, and now for a big client it's fine? Yeah,
like, we're supposed to be doing this, but because enough money's walking through the door, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, why not deal with it why not deal with it for the people that are making you money?
Yeah, who are working for you. Why are we... And, you always try to accommodate your coworkers and a good boss.
Yeah,
but
like scent-free workplaces. Like, I
yeah,
get that. But electricity-free workplace? Nah, this isn't the 1800s. We're fucking turning on lights. We're going to have our phones going. There may be a few tablets in the room. But I really enjoyed, and this may make me a little bit sick in the head for fucking liking it, when Chuck goes to the copy place. I love that he was just, he had no power. He had, no pun intended on that one. He just had no authority, like he was in a fucking photocopy place dealing with some kid who just got handed, I think like $300. Jimmy paid him to not tell Chuck what he did. Like, you're not going to find a more resilient person than a teenager who just made a couple $100. Like, he's going to stand up to that. And then even when he's like, I'm an officer of the court. No, you're not. You're a fucking lawyer. You're not, like, you don't have authority over somebody in public like this.
It's a really beautiful illustration of just how ridiculous Chuck's story is.
Like, it made me think of, like, somebody, like, if they were two young brothers, like, going down to, like, the convenience store and being like, was my brother here? It's like, this is a stupid feud between you two, and you're getting businesses involved in it.
Yeah.
Like, that's nuts. And then to take it to that level where, like, you think Chuck would have been like, maybe I shouldn't go into a place that has machines that shoot, like, ultraviolet rays into paper, or however the fuck a photocopier works. But, like, I feel like after seeing him in the MRI machine lose his mind, going into a photocopy place shouldn't have been something he was down with just to spite Jimmy.
But it seems like he's always been willing to take the risk to spite Jimmy. Same with the newspaper, season 1, when he went outside.
Or how about when he tricks Jimmy at the end of the season into admitting that he did fuck with the documents, and then even that little fucking sprinkle on top who's like, you just admitted to a felony, right? Like, again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't think that holds up. Like, I know there are some laws where it's like first party and single party and dual party
recording.
Yeah, where like as long as one person has consent for it, you can record another person. I don't know if New Mexico is that kind of place, but I feel like if Chuck shows up and is like, I tricked my brother into confessing to a crime, where it sounds like he's a crazy fucking old man and his brother is just pitying him by telling him what he wants to hear, that's going to get him booted out of HHM instead of galvanizing his position as Jimmy's here to fuck with us.
It's a risky game, and I think...
Oh, but I'll deal with electricity despite my brother. Like, fuck you. And like, technically, based on what we've seen by Chuck's illness and how he's, like, dictated the parameters of how it works, would him not putting all that reflective stuff inside with an electronic item just make it a lot fucking worse? Like, wouldn't it be kind of like a microwave or a fireplace where you have, like, a source that's putting out what hurts him and it's just bouncing around the
yeah,
room?
wouldn't it kind of trap it in there?
Like, again, it's one thing, but, like, we're just seeing that, like, obviously he believes what he's feeling, but it's not real.
And it's hard to sympathize with him when he's so cruel to his brother. Because Jimmy still, right to the end, like, loves him. Like, even, when they go in with Kim, he grounds himself. He makes Kim ground herself. Like, he's still playing by Chuck's rules. He idolizes him so much, which is what makes it even worse when Chuck is so childish towards him and makes it this competition. Because it's like Jimmy thinks Chuck has won. And he's like, you're a successful lawyer. Look at everything you've accomplished.
Yeah, he idolizes him.
Yeah. He's his hero, and he treats Jimmy like shit.
And Chuck's like, you're not my peer. It's like, dude, that's your brother. Like, I know I said that before, but that really stuck with me where, like, you shouldn't consider your group of peers and your brother or family like that to be the same, even if they're the same group, like your brotherly peer should be closer than both those groups. And to him be like, you're not even my peers, like, you're not even my brother, like that was a really sticking point. Like, it reminded me of A Few Good Men, where it's like, you can't handle the truth, like him just straight up telling Jimmy what he thinks of him, and it's horrible what he thinks of him.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine not considering your sibling your equal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with your little sister, you'd know those feelings a bit better than I would. Where, like, can you imagine screwing her out of a job twice? That would have, like, been her dream.
Never.
He's such a dick. Can't believe it. But on a happier note for the season, Kim came out swinging this season and
Damn right.
just did work, which I really liked, because first season I kind of thought, I was like, oh, cool, you know, a leggy blonde, they put her in the show, whatever. Like, she had her moments, but it was like, you could tell that, I got the actress's name here, Rhea Seehorn. Like, she could do so much work, and like season 2, they put a lot of that weight on her to get the season moving, and like those montages of her just like I've never been in that exact moment, but like I've called clients trying to sell something and them just be like, yeah, no, bye. And her just doing that on her lunch hour, after hours, trying to get back to a status she already held.
Day after day after day, she is putting in the work.
And then when she finally brings in Mesa Verde, which ends up being like the crux of this whole seasonal plot, that Howard standing there after they drive away, like, I swear to God, if he had pulled a gun out and shot her in the stomach and just left her there, I wouldn't have been surprised.
I was flabbergasted by that scene.
Man.
I could not believe how terrible Howard was to her. You know, like last season, I was really starting to think, wow, you know, Howard was really this good guy all along, wasn't out to get Jimmy, was just kind of stuck playing by Chuck's rules like everyone else.
Well, and we even learned too that it's because Howard's not the H, or well, he's one of the H's, but his father is the one that brought it up with Chuck, so he's like the odd man out in that relationship now.
You know, he's the kid who was, you know, idolized
He
someone.
Answers.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize that in the first season.
Yeah, you get a lot of perspective of everyone. You know, we're learning more about their history, more about their childhood this season. But yeah, you're starting to become more like, oh wow, Howard is a good guy. You know, he didn't want this, but he's so cruel to Kim.
Yeah.
And he's such a dick. Like, I just,
That scene where she hands him his or her letter of resignation, and he kind of breaks it down and is like, this was all I knew. This was all I had. Like, my dad put another H in the H&M company or whatever he said, like that. And then as soon as she leaves the office, he like buzzes his receptionist and is like, get me Mesa Verde on the line right away. Like that predator mentality of like, I wish you I think he was sincere, whether it's because he actually hoped for the best for her, or is like, you're out of my fucking hair, this is amazing, whatever it was. But still, at the end of that, to be like, I need to secure that client you just brought in before you really leave my office, exactly how Jimmy said it was gonna go. That was what what Howard Hammond is like, where it's, yeah, I'll play the game, but I'm trying to win the game.
yeah.
Which we didn't get a lot of in season 1. He was just kind of like, I hesitated to put him actually on my list of characters to talk about, because I was like, he's kind of like, he's like third string to Chuck and Jimmy.
He was just kind of there as a yes man.
The partner who were like, yeah, you're a dick because you're like a handsome rich guy, like easy to hate,
yeah.
And then they fleshed it out where it's like, no, he wanted Jimmy to be partner. Chuck told him no twice. We didn't get that expression as much, so that was a good way to flesh out Howard. But at the same time, he'll steal your business. It's a fucking Shark Tank out there. It's a Dragon's Den out there. This podcast sponsored by Dragon's Den. And as we talked about earlier, Mike's whole seasonal arc where he was dealing with Price and had to get back into business with Tuco, that came to a really crazy head when Nacho, God, these names are so hard to keep together sometimes, where Nacho hires him to kill Tuco. And he's like, no, I'm not going to kill him. I'll just get him put in jail, and gets the shit beat out of him. And like, as I was researching too, I didn't realize all the little subtleties that Mike does, but Mike gets paid Mike gets paid $25,000 by Nacho to kill Taco.
Okay.
Tuco. God, I'm going to screw that. Nacho and Taco. That's what the name should have been. Gets paid by
Missed
Nacho
opportunity
to kill Tuco, and instead gets him put in jail. And when Hector comes by and is like, I want you to say the gun is yours, I'll pay you to do so, and he finally gives in after they threaten his family, he asks for $50,000 and gives $25,000 of it back to Nacho because he didn't do the job. Like, he's beat the fuck up. Like, oh, his sentence is going to be a lot shorter, so I didn't really live up to my end of the bargain.
I didn't take care of your problem.
I was like, man, like, when are we going to get to the bottom of your morals? Like, how far does being a professional go where you got the shit beat out of you, still got the guy put in jail, but it's not for long enough like we agreed, so I'm going to refund you your money. I can't get refunds at like restaurants sometimes.
It really does seem like he has a soft spot for Nacho in a way.
Like an up and coming criminal.
Yeah, like he, even agreeing to kill Tuco. Like at first he's like so against it, and that's not a line he. Like when they're talking through the assassination, it's like normally you wouldn't give anyone the time of day about this, but it's almost like he's taking him under his wing, almost like I don't know. There's this potential surrogate son vibe that I'm getting.
Well, when they talk about it too, when he's like, "I want you to kill Tuco because he's crazy and he's gonna get me killed," Mike's like, "No, if we kill Tuco, that not only brings police involvement, that's gonna bring the cartel sniffing around,
Yeah.
and then we're both dead." And like clearly Nacho didn't think of that part of it, and he works with the cartel. So for Mike to kind of provide that guidance to be like, especially as an old man, like you don't see a lot of old criminals unless they've made it to the top. Like look at Hector, like he's been running the cartel for a long time. Like he's a bad man, but he's old. Like he clearly had to work his way up there. Also, Hector Salamanca up and walking around in Better Call Saul, talking and shit.
It's crazy to see
That's
that.
weird.
It's so startling. I must say that the scene we get reintroduced to him where he walks into the diner and sits down with Mike was terrifying.
But he was a perfect gentleman. Like he knew that dealing with Mike needed to be professional. And he also didn't have any chips aside from I'm going to pay you, and then like obviously resorts to I'll intimidate you into doing what I want, but his first approach was you're a professional, we're going to deal with this as professionals.
But I think right from the get-go, it's obvious to Mike and to the viewer that this isn't really an optional thing in the means that, like, he's found you. He knows who you are, where you are. You're not the one watching other people anymore, You're not the only one who can get intel and do their research.
Yeah, stakeouts.
Exactly.
But he also I think Hector underestimated him in that regard.
Absolutely.
Because he that's obviously like a primal thing that I think a lot of people will feel just when they see it. When Mike's at the pool with Stacy, I think is his granddaughter, Stacy. No, the mother is
the mother
Stacy. But when he's sitting there with his granddaughter and the two twins, Lionel and Marco, they show up and are just standing there, like
suit 1 and suit 2,
and like they're high enough away where like you couldn't get there. It would take you 5 minutes to get to where they were. They'd be long gone.
You'd never
be able to get them from where they were, and then they just seal it with like the finger guns and not the fun like finger guns like your granddaughter dead, you dead. Either you do what we say. That is like you could have just walked away from the situation. It's like John Wick, where it's like, oh, what have you done? Like you don't know what you're bringing down on you now. And I like that from Mike. I really like that because as an old man, it's like he's got we know what happens to him. We know what his story ends to in Breaking Bad, but it's like he's always got one more gunfight left in him. He's always, like he's willing to do it when he needs to.
He really walks this line of like having nothing to lose, but also having everything to lose.
Well, he's lost everything already.
With his son, but he has his son's daughter and his son's wife, and it's, I think he struggles with that. Like, I can say fuck it because my son is gone from this world, and he was the moral one, and he was my moral compass, and I ruined him, so I'm gonna ruin me. But there's this second chance and this other people to take care of. And I think that was a really, that moment was like, fuck.
Well, and I think like that's the clear motivation for why he's doing this stuff is he wants Stacy and his granddaughter to be safe when he gets them out of that house where she's like, I swear there were gunshots going off, and it ended up being the paper boy.
Yeah.
Throwing papers. But then the next morning after he was there all night, she's like, I swear a gunshot went off. Like, no, there was no gunshot, but somebody like whether that gets pulled into like, no, people are intimidating her to make her seem crazy in season 3 because it's the cartel we're talking about. Like they'll do stuff that we don't even understand, or she actually is just that fearful. Either way, they should be moved to that new house. But that's when Hector didn't realize he showed up in Mike's crosshairs because it's like that's a lot of money moving between this guy and his business, and he stakes out that diner, and then he plans the heist of the truck, and he steals $250,000 from Hector Salamanca. Man,
beautiful.
And then, but that bites him in the ass too when he leaves the driver alive, and that Nacho immediately is like, I only know one guy in the game who keeps people alive after a job, which is like, oh, bud, Mike, if only you just had a little bit less moral and principle, you'd be scot free. And the driver dies anyway.
And an innocent civilian.
Oh yeah, the guy who found the driver and cut him loose. I didn't even think of that. So yeah, really, he could have killed one criminal, but didn't. Actually, as I'm saying that plays into the half measure, full measure.
Yeah.
We heard in Breaking Bad where he's like, I don't do half measures anymore. So obviously this happens after that one because that story's about him being a Philadelphia police officer. But this is like, I should have just killed the guy and took the money, and they would have thought it was just some random hit.
Yeah.
But then, as we learn at the very end, when Nacho realizes what he's doing and is like, if you bring police around me and Hector, you're messing with me. And he goes to kill Hector. That terrifying end scene where somebody jimmies that tree branch into his car horn and just writes "don't" on his windshield.
Like, who do you think that is?
It couldn't be anybody we've seen because they were all there. The twins were there, Nacho was there, Hector was there.
Prediction, I think it's Gus.
Frayne?
Yeah.
Gustavo Frayne? Very good guess. I don't know, but I could see that being like, you kill Hector, you fuck up my business, and my business is killing Hector.
Yeah.
Because he wants Hector dead. And then, again, we've seen how that wraps up in Breaking Bad, but like, that's going to be an interesting feud that gets pulled out too, where it's just, why do they hate each other more than that poisoning we saw and that stabbing we saw?
Interesting tidbit that I saw online that I did not have time to verify. But apparently, if you rearrange the first letter in each of the episode names, it spells Fring's back because Gus Fring reappears this season.
In season 2 or season 3?
Season 2.
We haven't seen him yet, though, have we? We haven't seen Gus yet in season 2.
We see him working at, like, in the end. He's,
Is he? Honestly, I don't remember this at all.
Like, he's in the shop.
He's working in the restaurant?
Yeah. I don't think it's the same chicken place.
No, that's Los Polos Hernandos or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Really? I didn't see that at all. I don't disagree with you, because that would be a great way to introduce Gus, but I didn't catch that if that was a little Easter egg thing.
Okay, well, I need to verify that I'm not just...
And I also, before we get to season MVPs, honorable mention, the guy that Mike buys his guns off of. I want to see a TV show about that guy.
Yeah. So legit.
Like, great businessman, wide selection of weapons, and knows his stuff. But also, it's like that one where he shows Mike the sniper rifle and is like, all right, I better wipe my fingerprints off this gun just in case. No offense. It's like, I would be offended if I bought a gun from somebody and they didn't think to wipe their fingerprints off the gun. Like, how good of a gun salesman are you illegally if you're just going to hand me a gun with your distinctive fingerprints all over it and not wipe your fingerprints off after I buy it? I like that guy's like, he reminds me of like going to a Canadian Tire. But instead of picking up stuff for your car or for your home, it's stuff to complete assassination contracts with. He's a very interesting character. I'd like to see more of him, like, especially as the season goes on. It's like 007 getting geared up by Q, being like, here's your tactical laser watch, 007, when it says, like, here's a big-ass sniper rifle, Mike. You'll shoot someone's head off.
And he has such a great selection of big guns.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but I can get better.
Oh, this one might jam if you got a lot of shooting to do. Or, this one you can shoot up to 3,500 times before you got to replace the barrel. It's like, how many people do you think I would have killed, man? I got to kill one guy.
Is it going to be cold when you shoot it?
Oh, man, yeah. You got a few warm-up shots in you before you do it. Like, man, that was so cool. I really like that. So, I was going to say, season MVP, our favorite people of the season, whether it's because they had development, whether it's because they just did a bunch of work, whether we just liked them, whatever the reason would be. Nicole, who was your season MVP?
Definitely Kim.
Kim? Okay.
As you said, she put in the work this season. I think she really helped, this... My reasoning for MVP last episode for season 1 was that Saul, he put in the work. He was helping out everyone from himself to Kim to, his clients. And Kim was doing that for everyone this season. She helped Jimmy. Not only did she get him the opportunity at David in Maine, she convinced him to take it and rather than float in a pool for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Scamming that boring guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the bar or the hotel bar.
Yeah, she even at the cons, she's amazing.
Yo, that shit turned her on. They made that very clear.
I wrote that down. Literally. Yeah. Kim loves the con.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think you were going to say con when you said that, but you're right. You're right on both accounts.
And I'd like to get into that more. But I want to talk after we talk about MVP. Yeah, like that those scenes with her lunch hours, and I did mention this before, but when someone asks, "Oh, what did you have for lunch today?" and she has to make it up on the spot because she ate nothing and she hasn't had lunch clearly in days. Oh, vending machine wrap,
yeah, just some random shit.
The saddest thing you could think of.
It's part of slugging it out.
Yeah, and she just she's still helping HHM even though Howard's being so terrible to her, and she really. Jimmy probably would have been caught by Chuck, if Kim didn't,
dismiss his accusations.
Exactly.
Just tore him down about it, too. It was like, yeah, so what if he's right? Like, what evidence do you have?
Yeah.
How can you prove this? How
and you sound crazy.
Yeah.
And you're a man working in a wireless
crazy.
home with a lamp. Kim does so much this season, and you really see her work. And even when she comes up with the idea for them to, have solo practices together, like she's trying to find a way to make the both of them happy and the both of them succeed without hurting each other along the way.
Now, I really wanted to say Mike was my season MVP.
Mike.
Yeah, just because like we said, he did a bunch of cool stuff. He always seems to have like the calmer heads prevail mentality in any of those situations that other people are like, what do I do? This is all new to me. Like, he's done it. He knows it. But I got to agree, Kim, season MVP. She just did so much work.
Yay.
And I like that at the end, she finally got her own practice her way. It wasn't, because there was that little sub-story too where she wanted, where HH&M thought that she was going to get picked up by, I can't even think what the company's name is. Schweikert and Coakley?
Yeah.
Yeah, Schweikert and
When
Coakley.
she's approached by Rich.
Because she's getting just like shit all over at HH&M, so she's like, wow, these people seem super nice and appreciative of my hard work, and then realizes that's not what she wants. She wants to work for herself, and then does what she needs to do to achieve that, even in the parameters of working with Jimmy. Like, she knows enough to keep the distance, but also that he could be a very valuable ally in her up-and-coming firm. And that's like where everyone else has their own goals in mind, their own things they're trying to do. She has hers, but everyone else is helping her get there, whether they know it or not. And that's what I really like about that character this season.
I really enjoyed that too. I especially love the scene where she's in the courtroom and Howard doesn't show up before, when Rich...
she argues that bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that's when Rich asks her to lunch and offers her the job.
Yeah, you went down hard, but you went down swinging, or whatever he says to her.
And, tells her that same story, that same thing happened to me. I love that she was able to get away from these people who are being so terrible to her and just taking advantage of her ambition.
Why do the hard work for people that don't care?
Exactly, and who aren't going to reward you for it.
I think that's something a lot of people can relate to in jobs that they've had or may currently hold. So, I agree. That was a nice thing to see, that vindication at the end when she finally, like when they're just painting their office together and she's so happy about having this new place, and then when they finally have clients come in and she's happy about that too. Like, that was finally nice to see.
Yeah. Shout out to all the good bosses out there.
Yeah, all the ones that are holding it down. So, season MVP, we both agree. Kim, what was your favorite episode of season 2?
So I think my favorite was episode 7 that I already mentioned. Inflatable. So much happens there that I love. It has the opening scene with Jimmy's dad. And for me, that was kind of gave me hope that, like, okay, Jimmy's not this terrible person that has stolen all this money from his dad. We don't know for sure, but, part of me really wants to hold on to that's the only $5 he's ever taken.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's what crime does, right?
Yeah,
Only
yeah.
once.
But no, it's really humanizing to see Jimmy realize that, you can either be like, see his dad getting taken advantage of, and see that you don't have to, you can kind of, it's almost like that. You either be taken advantage of or you take advantage. You can kind of see where
Wolves or sheep.
Jimmy, where Jimmy learns his conning ways, I guess. And then you also get, some really great scenes with Jimmy and Mike, where Jimmy's defending Mike, and I love getting to see more of their interaction because we're not getting as much of that.
Yeah, their relationship's being built towards Mike being Jimmy/Saul's fixer.
Exactly.
See, now I would agree with you. Episode 7 was my favorite as well, Inflatable. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, we're spot on.
I know, and like we don't talk about this stuff beforehand too, so that actually worked out really well. But I have different reasons. I agree that I enjoy that we get that little backstory about Chuck and Jimmy's father, and where they might have gotten their respective mentalities. Because Chuck took away from that, I don't want to be a victim, but Jimmy took away from it, I'm gonna victimize people. Like, Chuck seemed to have found the happy balance, even though we haven't like fully seen that yet, where when he tells Kim, Jimmy embezzled money from our father, like, he didn't take money, but he also knew about the money being taken, like he wasn't blind to it like his father was.
Yeah.
So I think that was Chuck seeing himself as like the evolved version of both of them, like lawful good, but he's not. He's a fucking dick, and he needs to realize that. But my number one reason why I like pretentious as fuck. He doesn't like electricity. Like, how can that annoys me. Number one reason, though, I liked episode 7 is because I truly believe this is the first season we see the birth of Saul Goodman.
The suits.
The suits. I'm so glad you're right there with me. Those over-the-top, crazy suits, and that's a ploy for him to get fired from D&M, is it?
Yeah. David and Maine.
Yeah, David and Maine.
I have Jimmy's suits written down. It's fantastic.
I love that so much. The montage started, and I didn't realize that the joke was his suits. Like, he showed up, and they're just, like, looking at him. I was like, what? Like, he's just a lawyer. Like, are they rattled? And then, like, the next day, he's in a different suit, and they look at him weird again. I was like, oh, the joke is his suits are crazy.
Yeah.
Loved it. That was, so I think that's going to... We've seen a few bits of that in the seasons where it's like the persona of Saul Goodman is being formed. But that was the first time we saw it actually, like, come out with Jimmy. Plus, it's the episode where him and Kim agree to do their firm. So those are some other reasons
I had written down but was blanking on. And also, it's when Mike starts to follow Hector, turns the tables. He's doing the stalking again.
Oh, yeah.
Staking out.
Keeps his eye out and really starts screwing with them.
Yeah. And big things happening.
So what do you think's going to happen in season 3? You got any predictions? You got any story theories that are going to come to fruition in the next season?
I don't...
I think... you want me to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, you go first.
I think Chuck is going to look like a fucking madman when he brings in that tape. And I'm already visualizing, like, a scene between him and Howard in, like, a big office where he's like, Howard, I'm telling you, Jimmy did this. And Howard's like, you're a crazy old man and you've lost it. And, like, your brother's clearly pitying you. Like, he's not confessing. He's taking pity on an old man who can't even be around electricity. Like, I think that's what we're going to get, because Howard Hammond is building up to something. I don't think he realizes it, but, like, he's resentful of his job. He hates Kim and takes it out on her. He's tired of dealing with Chuck. Like, if Chuck walks in there and is like, pay attention to this crazy theory that I've put together to cover up my own simple human mistake, Howard's going to fucking explode on him. And I want to see that.
That would be really enjoying.
Or I want to see Ernie explode on him. Just be like, fuck you, old man. You're crazy.
Man, Ernie needs, like, a shout out.
Ernie needs a raise.
Yeah.
Whatever they're paying him, not enough.
Well,
As a
Jimmy
fucking
tells him
intern?
that. Go in and tell Howard you need a raise and a big one.
Oh my god. Yeah.
But he is like MVP for Chuck and Jimmy. Their own personal MVP player.
Yeah. And I think in the third season, between Jimmy and Kim, there's going to be more, let's say, ethical issues with how their practice operates. Where Jimmy's going to do some stuff that's going to, in some way, cast shade on Kim's side of the practice as well. And she's going to have to step up and be like, look, because that was a big thing, was I don't ever want to hear about these like scams you're pulling ever again, because it could get us both disbarred.
Yeah. We saw, as we were saying, you see how much Kim kind of loves the con, and that first exchange really turns her on and gets her going.
She likes it in a freaky way.
Yeah, like she spends the night with Jimmy after like having been pissed at him for forever.
When his name was like Vince Turbo or something. I remember being a really stupid name, and I laughed so hard.
Oh, what was hers? Like Genevieve or something? No, Giselle. Giselle?
I don't remember either.
Oh.
Side note, I'm totally going to start using Vince Turbo as like
Vince
my
Turbo.
alias.
So yes, you see how much she loves it in the first episode, and then immediately in the second, that's when we have Jimmy defending Price and using the he sits in pie videos.
Oh god, yeah, the pie fetish video, fuck.
And when he tells Kim about it, she loves it and finds it funny right up until the falsifying evidence.
Yeah.
And that's when we really start to see this ongoing trend all season where Kim has a line that she will not cross. It's fine to do in the off duty, and part of our job, is coming up with a story on the spot and being able to talk it out. Defending your client. But there's a line that you do not cross, and she will not cross it. And I think Jimmy, is going to force her towards it, is going to muddy her career. Because she's not a part of, we do not see her in Breaking Bad.
No, Kim has never come up in Breaking Bad.
So she's clearly out of Jimmy's life. He fucks that up
or she's dead.
Which, please no, I can't.
Well, so he's using a different name in Breaking Bad. And as we've seen from Breaking Bad, he switches names when, shit goes, everybody dies.
Yeah.
So, if that happened to Jimmy...
But he's still in New Mexico, so that's what...
Yeah, he's in Albuquerque, damn it.
See, that's what, to me, I feel like
city?
the name change is going to be to get away from HHM. I feel like things might go south, but they clearly can't go so south where, people still will know him as Jimmy McGill, you know, unless every single person we've seen in the series so far who isn't on the criminal side dies.
No, I agree. There are, clearly, Mike knows him as Jimmy McGill, and he's going to make it through the change to Saul Goodman.
Yeah.
Nacho's going to make it through the change to Saul Goodman. Hector's going to make it through, whether he realizes it or not. Whether he knows that he's changed his name to Saul, or whether because he's in a wheelchair he can barely understand that, because, whatever. Again, we don't even know what happens to that yet. I'm fairly certain, I haven't looked into this, but I haven't seen anything to lead me to that conclusion yet, thankfully. But I don't think the series has revealed what happens to Hector yet. I don't think they've got that far yet. Because that to me would have been, from what we've seen, that seems like the ultimate reveal in the series right now. Is when does Hector get put in his fucking wheelchair? Because they say it was from a stroke. Or maybe it was to keep him just quiet. I can see the police thinking he had a stroke, and in reality the cartel fucked him up for doing something. I don't know what that's going to be. That's just my weird theory on it. Who knows? Somebody could hear this and be like, in season 4, Hector gets shot in the spine, and that's how, I don't know. I don't think they've revealed that yet, so.
To the best of your knowledge.
That's the feeling I have for it, yeah. Either way, I'm very excited for season 3. I think it's going to be a really good season, and now that we finished recording this, we can watch season 3.
Damn right. I'm so excited. Do you think it will open on another flashback?
I hope so, yeah. I think that's what they're establishing. I wouldn't be surprised if we got more of those flashbacks this season.
I'm hoping so. There were some very powerful opening scenes this season.
Yeah, but that's always how Vince Gilligan's done it, though, is wheels you in before the credits even start.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Keep it up.
the first one that comes to mind, and I'm sure other people are thinking about it right now too, is the second to last episode of Breaking Bad, when it just shows the like where Hank gets killed and all that shit goes down, but it's the empty plateau before everyone gets there, and then it's like one car, another car, like it slowly builds the scene, and then it's like, and here's where we're at, Hank dying. Like I that sticks out in my head so much because it was like step by step, we're gonna show you how we got to the events that got us here.
Another one that popped into my mind, just as you were saying, I'm sure everyone's thinking of it, was the plane crash, where we see the house and the pool and the bear off
eyeball.
Yeah, the eyeball floating. Yeah, I can still picture that vividly.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got more of those because, again, in my limited research, it seems like the engine really started revving up after season 2 for Better Call Saul. People were invested. People were kind of getting that hype around what's season 3 going to be like, where's it going to take us, what's going to happen, and they hadn't really, gotten their legs as a spin-off show up until then. So I'm very excited to see what the next 10 episodes have in store, and hopefully we're right on some of these theories.
Here's hoping.